Right, so we are nearly at Christmas and the Minister of Housing is trying to give away a gift to all first-time buyers. So in today's video, I'm going to quickly discuss this new proposal from the Housing Minister that was meant to be seen or heard in the Dáil today. I'm not quite sure if it was heard in the Dáil today, and I actually did try to do a little bit of research on the actual bill or the memo itself. I couldn't actually find anything on any of the government websites, so I'm not entirely sure what was actually presented to the Dáil today, if it was presented at all today. I did try find out as much information as I possibly could. And what I have found out is, some of you may already know, is that the Minister is proposing that the government will take up to a 30% stake into new homes for first-time buyers. So what that means is it allows a first-time buyer only pay 70% of the value of a new home, and the government will take 30% of that and pay it, but they'll own 30% of that house. What I've discovered in this is, first off, it's targeted at new homes. It is also targeted at first-time buyers. There is some discussions that it will be opened up to second-hand buyers, but there will be caveats opposed to those second-hand buyers. I presume that there will be certain parameters that you will need to fit into to qualify for this scheme. It is aimed at new homes. It's aimed at houses up to a maximum value of 400,000. This means that if the government is taking the maximum equity stake in the house of 30%, that means they will be putting in up to 120,000 per house. It's going to be available to single people and couples as well. There's not going to be an arbitrary cap put on any salaries. It will be open for everyone. So it's really to get people onto the property ladder that are struggling to actually save for a deposit or actually get a mortgage for the approval that they require in terms of buying a house that they need. So it's people who are maybe earning quite a lot of money, but they're stuck paying a considerable amount of money on rent and they cannot afford to save for a deposit. That's kind of who it's aimed at, for people who are kind of in between the kind of ability to buy a house or qualifying for social housing. So as I said, I couldn't actually find the exact details of the bill online anywhere, or I think it might have been just a memo. But what I have kind of discovered is that there will be a requirement on the owner to pay back the state over a certain amount of time. Perhaps that's 5 years or longer, or every year up to 5 years. Exactly that detail I haven't seen yet, but there's definitely a requirement for the owner to pay back the state. So buy back that equity that the state have in the house. If the price of the house goes up, the actual state will benefit as well. So if the state have 30% equity in a house and the prices of houses rise, the state will actually make money. So they will be benefiting from whatever the value of the house increases as well as the owner will. So let's just say house prices rise and the state have, say, 30% of a house, and a house rises by 10 grand in value. The state's value have increased by 3 grand. So their stake has increased by 3 grand in that scenario. What happens if values fall? Which perhaps they could, perhaps they mightn't, perhaps they may stay stable, but over the long term, perhaps values might fall. In that scenario, the taxpayer is risking a considerable amount of money on this scheme if houses prices fall. So as taxpayers, we will have more of an incentive for house prices to continue to rise if this scheme is rolled out and the state invest heavily in housing. So let's just say the state was to invest in 10,000 houses over the next 2 to 3 years. They take a 30% stake in each one of them, and let's say it's a maximum of the 30%. That could equate to an investment in private houses for individuals of 1.2 billion over a few years. If property prices were to fall by 10-20%, you could be looking at a write-off from a tax point of view in terms of value falling because the state's equity has fallen, of anywhere up to 240 million on a 20% drop. I am all in favour of tax incentives that drive development. There has been very successful tax incentives here in Ireland. Some of them have helped regenerate deprived areas, and they've been very successful in major cities throughout Ireland. But these types of schemes where the government directly get involved with a certain sector, in this instance first-time buyers, all they really do is drive up house prices for everyone else. Granted, first-time buyers can get on the market a little bit easier. They don't have to require the same kind of deposit, so they can buy a little bit quicker. And developers can build sites that perhaps weren't feasible to start with. But what you're not doing is you're not helping with affordability. All these kind of types of schemes, all they really do is actually in the long run will drive prices up, which perhaps may not be a bad thing over the next few years. It may actually help stabilize prices over the next few years, and prices may not fall as far, especially in new homes. But realistically, all you're doing is driving prices up, and you're not addressing the affordability point at all. The only real way to address the affordability issue is through design and is through planning. We need to go after higher densities in city centres in terms of a planning point of view, and in terms of a design point of view, we need different designs that are more affordable to build. So they're the two ways that will actually help long-term address this problem. But talking about design, actually, while I was looking for the bill that the Housing Minister was bringing to the Dáil today, on this equity scheme, I came across a new bill by Sinn Féin's Eoin Ó Broin. So yesterday when I was making this video, I did go on a little bit of a rant, and I want to just cut that out completely, but I do need to explain it a little bit so the end of the video actually makes sense. While I was researching this topic, I came across a new bill from Sinn Féin Eoin Ó Broin in regard to fire certificates for rental accommodation. The bill requires landlords to have a fire certificate for any rental accommodation that they are putting on the market or renting out, which in principle sounds a good idea. However, in practice, it doesn't make an awful lot of sense, because our fire regs only came out in 1981 and 2003. Therefore, anything built before those dates would be at risk of not meeting those building or fire reg requirements, which, if you think about it, is a huge amount of properties that were built before that. If you think about any of our cities, most of the properties were built before that. And that could mean that those properties would be ruled out of the rental market, which would mean that rental prices will go up because supply will drop. It will also rule out a number of landlords from the rental market as well, unless they spend hundreds of thousands trying to upgrade their properties. Rant over. Hopefully this was a bit shorter than the original one, but let's move on with the rest of the video. The bill itself isn't thought out well enough to actually be considered. It will fail, and I think it is a cheap attempt by Sinn Féin to grab more headlines. But on that note, I think Fianna Fáil, in terms of the Housing Minister, is trying to grab votes from first-time buyers or families who might have first-time buyers within them, to try buy their votes at the moment in terms of offering this scheme for taking an equity share in a new home. Sinn Féin as well are trying to grab headlines and trying to stir up bad headlines for the government in terms of their bill that they're putting through. Neither of these things are that helpful in terms of what the overall goal is. And the overall goal is affordability. And as I said, the only way to achieve that is through good design and good planning practices. However, neither of those things actually generate votes. So therefore, the government don't table them. But realistically, it's the only way to solve the problem, and they need to get on with the actual solving the problem rather than worrying about the press and worrying about what votes they might get. So this might be one of my last videos before Christmas. I will be putting out a quick Christmas message, but I want to say thank you very much for your support, all your positive feedback. Last few weeks have been a bit busy, and I know I've got some emails or some text messages and so on over on Instagram in regards to sending some details or asking questions around property. Haven't been able to get to all of them. I've got to some of them, but not to all of them, but bear with me. And if I have missed you, please go ahead and send me another email. Don't worry about it. But I want to say thanks again for your support and happy Christmas. I will come out with a new video before the end of the year in regards to where the market is now and where it's going for next year. I'm still formulating a lot of my thoughts on that and just looking at the research. But as always, thank you very much for watching. If you're not, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And again, thank you very much for watching.